it do? It's your girl, the Kool Kydd here, and welcome back to my channel. So today, before we get into this video, I just want to say I hope that everyone is safe and doing well, especially during this time with the pandemic happening and the rioting all over the country. I hope that you guys are staying safe, you're still wearing your mask and being protected during this time. And just know that from me and my family to you, that we love you and we are praying for you. So today, before we get into this video, I would just like to say that me as a Black content creator, trying to find a voice for herself, coming up, I felt like it would be very much of a disservice if I didn't speak on this topic of what we are going through today. I don't want anyone to be offended by anything that I'm going to say. I am going to touch on some experiences that I have had, which dealt with racism. And I would love for you guys to give me your feedback within the comment section below, or just share your experiences with me so that we can engage in conversation, because just as much as I want my voice to be heard, I want your voice to be heard, and your story is just as important as my story. So don't ever feel like you can't speak out against what has happened to you or what is happening to you at the current moment. It was kind of hard for me to actually speak about this, and one of the experiences happened to me, I would say about over a year now, and the other experience happened to me when I was about, I would say 8, 9, so I was in like 3rd grade. So let's touch on the topic of me in the 3rd grade. So this is the first time in my life that I've ever experienced racism, and it took me a while to actually notice and realize like I was experiencing that at the moment. And it is just so disheartening to have to live back that memory right now, because 9-year-old me did not even think that that was happening to me at the moment. So I remember being in the 3rd grade, and I lived in East Flatbush. For everybody who was from East Flatbush, like when my family migrated here, we lived with my grandmother, and my grandmother lived in East Flatbush. So for a good duration of my life, I lived in East Flatbush before I moved to Crown Heights with my mom. So I went to school in East Flatbush. I went to PS 249. For anyone who went to PS 249, comment below. But seriously, so I went to PS 249, and I remember being in the 3rd grade. I can't remember this teacher name for the life of me, and I wish I remembered it, because I remember this moment so vividly. I remember being in the 3rd grade, and I had a white teacher, and it was this other Spanish girl in the class. And for some reason, my white teacher did not like me. When I tell you she did not like me, it was just so crazy, because I'm only 8 or 9 years old at the time, or I was probably 8 turning 9. And she could not stand me for anything. Like, if I raised my hand in class, she wouldn't pick on me. If I had to ask her questions, she wouldn't pick on me. And I always thought, like, is it me? Am I the reason why she's not picking on me, or am I not smart enough to answer these questions? Like, it was just so many thoughts going through my head being that young. And I remember that it was a Spanish girl in the class, and for some reason, me and her did not get along. I have no idea why me and her didn't get along, but I remember her going to the teacher and telling the teacher something bad about me. And then she went home and told her mom that she didn't like me. And her mom came up to the school and was telling the teacher, like, oh my God, my daughter's having nightmares about her picking on her and bullying her. Like, I don't know, you guys need to figure this out, or whatever the situation was. And my mom, who was like the most hardworking person that I've known, she had to take off a day at work and come up to the school to have pretty much a conference with this teacher about the parents saying how her child is having nightmares and she can't sleep because of all this stuff. And I remember my mom getting so upset for the fact that she knew that I wasn't the type of child to pick on anyone or bully anyone. And I remember her telling the teacher that I know that you don't like my daughter, and it's okay, because what you think about her will not be how she's gonna grow up to be. She's not gonna be like you. And I remember that teacher being so confused by what my mom was saying, because she didn't realize that my mom knew that she was a racist. And I remember my mom turning to the Spanish little girl and her mom and telling them, stop lying on my daughter, because you know that this benefits you with this situation when it comes to the teacher knowing that she doesn't like my daughter. And I remember from that day, I don't remember that little girl ever saying anything else about me after my mom set that straight. And I don't remember ever going home and having the conversation with my mom about what happened or what was happening to me. But a part of me knew that because I was Black, that I wasn't accepted by this teacher. And I couldn't understand why I wasn't accepted by her. And a part of me couldn't understand why someone that is a minority, which is another Latino, why is it that they felt the need to bring me down as a young lady? I didn't understand that. And still to this day, that's still something I can't fully understand. And with me working with people of all races, white, Black, Spanish, doesn't matter, I've always noticed that Spanish people will be quick to tell you that they are not Black. And that bothers me so much, for the simple fact that people need to realize in this day and age, in the society that we live in today, that if you are not white, you are considered Black. You are a minority. Like, whether you like it or not, whether you don't want to accept that fact, you are. I'm sorry that I have to be the one to tell you this, but you are. And but putting another person down to benefit yourself wouldn't get you far at all. So it's better that you lift that person up and help them to get to where they need to be, or just leave them alone. Because tarnishing anyone's reputation is not going to help you in any way possible. So let's get on to my second experience with racism. Now, from being 9, this is about what? I was 23 at the time, so it's about almost 16 years later with that experience. I've had other situations that have shown me, oh, well, you know, you being Black, you have to work 10 times as harder to get to where you need to be, or just watching movies and seeing things like this happen had made me realize that. And me being not only Black, but a woman, you have to work even harder than anyone if you want to be seen, because the way that white men in particular see Black women, they still see the image of you being a slave, or you being a maid, or you just bowing down to them. And I absolutely hate that. So this situation happened to me when I was 23, and this had put me in such a dark place in my life, and a lot of people in my family didn't even know about this, and even talking about it to this day still makes me want to cry, because it wasn't anything that I felt that I would have experienced in my life. And it wasn't something that I felt I should have experienced to begin with. But when I was 23, so for you that don't know me or are getting to know me, I am a hospitality major. I went to school in Brooklyn, and I have my bachelor's in hospitality management. So I have been working for as long as I can remember, ever since I got a summer youth job to actually having a permanent job at the age of like 15 to 16. I have been working during that time, and I have always worked so hard to get to where I need to be. And this was my third hotel job, and it wasn't paying me not that great as it should have paid me, but it was giving me the experience that I felt like I definitely needed if I was going to make the next step in my life. And it was on my management team, it was only 4 of us. It was a director, assistant director, a manager, and a supervisor. And I got hired as a supervisor, and I was told that in 6 months I would be promoted to a housekeeping manager. So I was just like, okay, sounds great. And I remember having to negotiate how much I wanted to be paid. And I should have taken that as a red flag, because I remember in the interview process, they asked me how much my previous job was paying me. And it didn't hit me like, Renee, don't tell them what your previous job was paying you. But I did, and that was so stupid of me. And I told them, and then when they sent over like the offering letter, letting you know that you got the job, and I saw how much they were going to pay me, the first number that they gave me was only like 75 cents more than what I would have made at my previous job. And my previous job was hourly, so obviously if I worked more hours, I get paid more, and this job was going to be salary. So that was the first red flag. Didn't pay that no mind. I was like, you know what? It's more money. I'll just take it. And during my time there was a lot of things that I was noticing but didn't really speak too heavy on, because one, I was new. I was still learning, and I just felt like it wasn't my place. So my general manager, he was a white Jew, and it was just something about him that rubs me completely the wrong way in the beginning, and later on I started to see what it was. So at this job, after the first thing that happened was that one day I'm at work and I was on a PM shift, and our PM shift is just so slow. So like it came to a point where sometimes I literally had nothing to do, so I would have to find a bunch of things to do, and I would leave like my bag in the office area, but the office area was kind of like an open space area, and I've always left it there, nothing's ever happened. But like this time I left it on the counter because we had a guest complaint, and I had to deal with it so quickly that I didn't even think to put it in the drawer and lock the drawer. So now my shift is over. I'm heading to go catch the train to come home, catch the bus to come home, and I noticed that my wallet wasn't in my bag. So I'm just like, where the hell my wallet could be? So I go back in the building and I'm looking for my wallet, and I'm asking people like, did you see my wallet or whatever the case is? And they're just like, no, I didn't see it. So I text my manager and my director, and I was just like, I'm not sure where my wallet is, but it's not in my bag, and I definitely knew I had it when I came into the building. And if you can ask the employees in the morning about it, because I was going to be off. So I even text my husband like, oh, do you see my wallet in the house? And maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe I didn't bring it, or whatever the situation was. So he was looking. So I never found my wallet. Till this day, I've never found this wallet. So I was telling my mom about it, and my mom was like, I think we should make a police report and whatever the situation is. So I remember my director letting her know, like, no, I'm going to make a police report because it doesn't make any sense how my wallet is just gone. Like, I brought it with me, And I remember her calling to tell me that the general manager did not want me to make a police report because he didn't want the police coming to the hotel. And I was just like, what? Like, what does this have to do with anything? And I remember that day, because me and my husband we were walking to the DMV in New Jersey to get me my license. And I remember telling him, and he was just like, that makes no sense. Like, I feel like they're trying to cover something up. Like, why would they want you to make a police report? And I was just like, right, that's the same thing I'm saying. So I remember just like brushing that off, leaving that alone. And I didn't go to work for like 2 days because I was still waiting for like my credit cards to come and all this type of stuff, because I had just gotten married. It's like everything was switching over to my new name, and it was just a process, and everything was literally like coming within that week, which was so great. So like I didn't go to work. So I remember going back to work and people asked what the hell is going on. So it made it seem like I was the rebel in this whole situation, and I was just the only one that's not willing to cooperate. And it annoyed me so much. So I remember after that meeting, she was like finished for the day, she left. And then it was just the assistant director, myself, who's now a manager, and the supervisor. And I remember him asking me, like, what happened? And I was just like, I'm upset. And he was like, why are you upset? I'm like, I'm upset because you have so much to say when you're on the phone with me, but then when you have to voice these opinions, you have nothing to say. And he was just like, well, you know, there's a time and place for everything, and I don't think certain things should be said. And I was like, if certain things shouldn't be said, then you shouldn't say it to me. Like, don't tell me you're gonna do something and then piggyback on it, because like you're not staying true to your word. And if your word doesn't mean anything, then I can't trust you. Like, I just can't. So that happened. So now let's fast forward to like what really made me just so disgusted, not only with the people who were involved, but the company itself. So this happened around 2008. All of this is in 2008. It's 2008, I'm sorry. 2018. So this is after Thanksgiving. I get my jury duty papers. So like, I was so confused. I'm just like, gosh, I just came from New York, living in New Jersey. Like, I didn't think that I would have jury duty so soon. And in New Jersey, it's about like every 4 years, which is so annoying. So in New Jersey, it's mandatory 2 days, and I did not know that. So I'm giving my manager all these updates on the situation, and I ended up getting picked for jury duty. When I got picked for jury duty is when everything broke loose. So I got picked for jury duty. I did it for about, I think it was maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So I only was able to work on the weekends. And I remember my husband asking me like, oh, are you getting paid your whole salary since you're only going to work for 2 days? And I was just like, no, I was told that if I want to get paid, I would have to use either my vacation days or my sick time. And he was just like, no, that's not true. You're not supposed to use any of that. Like, everyone's obligated to go to jury duty. It's not a choice. Like, you have to go. Like, they're supposed to pay you. And I was just like, well, that's not what I was told. And he was like, who told you that? I was like, my director told me that. And he was like, no, that's not true. So I remember him going to work and printing out a bunch of not only articles, but like jury, like just stuff from like the labor department that talks about getting paid for jury duty, whether your salary, non-salary, all this stuff that he printed out. Cause like my husband's going to school to be a forensic accountant, but what he really wants to do is be a lawyer. So like at this time, he's printing all these stuff out, he's giving it to me, he's highlighting everything, and he was just like, I think you should make copies of this, you should give it to your director, and then you should give it to the person in accounting who actually pays you at the end of the week. And I remember printing them all out, attaching it to writing a letter stating like, oh, can you please look over these documents, and putting it in her mailbox and putting the same copy with the letter under the door of the accounting guy because he didn't have the mailbox. So I was just like, okay, I didn't know me doing that was gonna lead to a heap load of destruction. And oh my God, when I say oh my God, it was literally a heap load of destruction. So I remember her sending me an email, as always, and in the email, she CC'd the guy, like 2 guys that worked in accounting, and also the general manager, talking about how I put letters in her mailbox stating about, no, I'm confused about how to get paid when it comes to jury duty. And I remember the general manager responding and putting a section from the handbook in the email to me. And I remember responding to him and telling him, this doesn't apply to me because 1, I didn't sign the handbook, and 2, that handbook is for hourly employees. There was no handbook for salary employees, so that doesn't apply to me. And I could tell that he got upset during that email that I sent, and his way of responding to it was just like, you know, when you come back from jury duty, we need to have a meeting, me, you, and the director. And I was just like, okay. So there was 2 meetings. Keep that in mind. There was 2 meetings, 2 different days, 2 different weeks. So the first meeting we had, it was me, him, and my director. Him meaning the general manager. And I remember him asking me like what was my concerns, and I was telling him, well, I did leave documents for Charmaine, and I also was told and notified that even if I was to come to work 1 day out of the week and I did some type of work, I am still entitled to my whole salary. And he was like, who told you that? I was like, well, if you review these documents, which is also from the labor department, and I also did call the labor department and was told this. And he was just like, why would you call the labor department? And I was just like, the labor department deals with labor and how people get paid. Like, why would I not call them? And he was like, I need you to go to jury duty and get a letter from them letting them know that you won't be paid. And I was just like, what is that going to do for me? Like, if I go to jury duty and tell them that I'm not going to be paid, it's not, what are they going to do about it? And he was just like, then they're going to pay you. I was like, well, from what I know with jury duty is that if you want to be paid, or if you're getting paid for the duration of the trial, you don't get that check until after the trial is over. And your job is supposed to deduct that amount from your salary, but they're still supposed to pay you. And he was like, no, that's not what it's supposed to be. And I was just like, okay. So then he's like, oh, what are the other concerns? I was like, well, I was told if I needed to be paid that I would have to use my PTO or my sick days. And he was like, who told you that? And I was just like, the director told me that. And then she was just like, no, I didn't. I didn't tell you that. I was like, yes, you did. I have text messages and emails, which it states that you're telling me that. And she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't tell you that. So I was just like, okay. So then he's like, you know what? I need you to go to jury duty and tell them what I just told you, and then I need you to bring back the information to me, and we're gonna go from here. And I was just like, okay. He was like, so in a week from now, I need to find out what happened. So I was just like, okay. And the meeting was over. But I was just like so confused that day, because I was just sitting there like, you as a general manager is asking me to find out information to help you that you should know, that people on the management team should know, and it just didn't make sense to me. Like, these are people who have years in hospitality, I'm telling you, and the question that you're asking me, you should know the answer to these questions. And me, as a newbie in this industry, is sitting here telling you this, and you're sitting down and saying to me like, well, you need to find this out and bring it back to me. Clearly shows me that you're not competent to do your job effectively. Like, that is how I felt in that moment. So we left. I think I got sent home that day, because I ended up saying something and he got mad and he sent me home. I can't even remember, but I know I got sent home. And I remember telling my husband about it, and he was just like, why would he want you to go back and find this information? Like, this is something he should know. And I was just like, right, that's what I would think. So a week goes by, and me and my husband are on our way back home from running errands in New York. And I get a call from my director, and she's like, oh, the general manager wants to know if you found out the information. I was just like, what information? She's like, the information that he asked you about in the last meeting. And I was just like, okay. She's like, well, he wants to know because he wants to have a meeting tomorrow when you're in. And I was just like, all right, that's fine. So telling my husband like, oh, he wants to have a meeting about this again, or whatever the situation is. And he's just like, what is there to have a meeting about? And I was like, exactly. Left it alone, didn't pay it any mind. So I opened that morning and sent the ladies upstairs, got everything done. And I just had like an instant reaction to myself, like, today is not going to be a good day. Like, this meeting is not going to go well. So we're in the meeting, and again, it's the general manager, myself, and my director. And I remember him starting the meeting, and he's just like, he already has an attitude, and he's just like, did you find out the information that I told you to get? And I was just like, what information are you talking about? He's like, did you go back to the courthouse and did you tell them that we're not paying you? I was like, no, I didn't go back to the courthouse, because what is the courthouse gonna do with that? Like, I fully don't even understand, like, what is the courthouse gonna do? So he was like, you see, I gave you an order and you chose not to do it. And I was just like, I didn't have to do it, because one, you told me to do this, which is my day off, which is not something I'm obligated to do when I leave this building. So no, I didn't go. And I remember my director like, Renee, stop it. Like, she's like tapping my leg and telling me to like pretty much shut up. And then he goes into like a bunch of rambles, and he's just like, you know what? I've heard that you had your husband staying here during the last blizzard we had, and you didn't ask anyone if your husband could stay here. Like, I don't give a shit about your husband. And I also heard that your sister-in-law works here. And I remember him saying those things, like, my blood instantly started to like bubble. Like, oh my God, I got so mad. And I was just like, what does this have to do with anything? And I was like, like, yes, my husband did stay here, and my husband couldn't get home just like I couldn't get home, and I did tell him that he can stay with me, and he was going to work the next day. And he was like, I don't give a shit about your husband. Your husband shouldn't have been staying here. It's not a party. And I was just like, you're right, it's not a party, because we didn't have a party. We went to sleep just like anybody else, and he went to work and I went to work. And I was like, you don't be saying this to everyone else who come on their MOD weekend, which they should be working, and they have their boyfriends or their families here with them. I don't see this same type of attitude when it comes to them. And he was like, that has nothing to do with this. And I'm like, it has everything to do with this, because it's the same scenario. The only difference is I was finished with my shift, and I was only sleeping here for a short period of time, which had to be like a good 5 hours, and then I was leaving that room. And he was like, Jorge was the one who told me to make you sleep, and I should have just let you figure out how to get home. And I told him, I said simply, I was like, one, I didn't want to stay here. I would rather be in my bed at home. And if I was able to go home, I would not be here the next day. Trust and believe that I would have called out. So he was like, oh, and also your sister-in-law works here? Like, what is up with that? How are you a manager and you're managing family? And I was just like, wait a minute. When he said that, I was just like, let's not even go there talking about family members working with family and managers and whatever situation. I'm like, because it's a lot of people, especially in the housekeeping department, who are related to each other. And there is another manager who has another relative, which he manages as well. And then nobody talk about that. And he was like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And I was just like, you should know. You should know what I'm talking about. So I remember him turning to my director, and he's like, what is she talking about? He was like, she's like, I don't know what she's talking about, but there are rumors that our supervisor is related to one of the housekeepers, but I've asked him, and he told me that they're not related. And I remember just looking at her like, you are such a liar. Like, you're sitting here lying, knowing that they're related. I've seen you ask him myself if that was his cousin, and you're here to benefit yourself for knowing this. So then he's asking her, like, how is she able to, like, have this person work here and manage them at the same time? She's just like, well, they don't really interact, and when they do interact, Renee is very professional about it, and she would give her feedback and whatever the situation is. And I was just there like, one, you only know that's my sister-in-law because I have now hyphenated my last name. If I didn't do that, you would have not known. Like, you would have not known. So I remember after him saying all that, he starts to really discredit me as not only a manager, but as a person. And that did not sit well with me. I remember him telling me that he didn't think I was capable of being a good manager. He didn't think that I was a good manager. I remember him telling me that I was immature and I needed to grow up. And as much as I wanted to cry in that moment, I remember saying to him, like, you are entitled to your own opinion about me, and what you say is not a reflection of me, and I honestly don't care how you feel. I mean, you may feel like I'm immature and I'm not a good manager, and that is totally understandable. That's how you feel. How I feel about myself is all that I care about, and that's that. And I remember him just like going off about that, just kept saying all these negative things, and my director just pretty much just like not saying anything, not defending me in any way, just sitting there and allowing him to pretty much insult me on every level. And she just sat there and said nothing. And I was just like, I was hurt, because not only was she another Black woman who probably knew what struggles you have to go through in this industry, but her just being old enough to be my mom is what pissed me off, because like, regardless of what your title is as an individual in your career or whatever it is, at the end of the day, a lot of people who get these positions at these, whether it's a director, a chief, whatever the situations, and they are either a minority or they are African American, they tend to think to themselves or not realize you are still Black. Regardless of what degree you have, what school you went to, it does not matter. The fact that you're Black would always stay with you. And that is always going to be the first thing they see. And that really pissed me off, because in that moment, she was able to sit there and let him do that and not think to herself like, wow, that could have been my daughter in that situation, or that could have been me in that situation. And I can't even remember the last thing I said to him that made him get so heated and so red that he kicked me out of his office. But in that moment when I left his office, I remember saying to myself, I know I'm going to be fired. Like, I knew it. I knew I was going to be fired. And I was just like, you know what? Whatever. So I went back upstairs and I was like walking around, talking to like the housekeepers and whoever the situation, checking on them. And I remember getting a call on the radio from my director, and she's telling me to come to the office. So I go to the office and she's saying to me like, oh, the general manager wants to fire you, and today is going to be your last day. And I cried. I remember crying, and it was just like a mix of emotions at that point of why I was crying, because I knew that the fact that not only was I Black, but I was a woman, and I stood my ground in a situation that was very unlawful, and he knew that I knew that he didn't like the fact that I knew that. He didn't like the fact that I was smart enough to educate myself in the situation and then tell him that he didn't know what he was doing. He did not like that. And he was the type of person who wanted to be in control, and you were beneath him. And the fact that he knew that I wasn't going to be the type of person to kiss his ass or beg and plead for my job, with him firing me, he knew that I was a way to pretty much mute me as a person. And I was just like, wow. Like, he's a racist. Like, he is a full cis. Wow. Like, what? And I remember him sending, like, security to come to the office to, like, escort me out, as if I was, like, some criminal. Like, I was gonna, like, take office supplies or, like, destroy the place, whatever the situation was. And like, when that happened, even though I was crying, I couldn't help but to laugh. Like, what? Like, are you kidding me? And my manager still in that moment, with everything that happened, didn't say anything. She didn't stand up for me. She didn't speak on my behalf. She just cared about herself. And that really hurt me. Because with that situation, I was like unemployed for like 9 months after that. And during that 9 months of just being in the house and not used to being in the house, I got so depressed. I just thought I wasn't good enough. I didn't hate myself, but it made me feel like I should have spoken out in a situation if this was what it was going to lead to. And it took me months to get over that feeling. Like, even some days now, with this whole pandemic going on, I still get a little sad with just being in the house, because it brings back such a bad memory for me. And I have to constantly tell myself, like, you're better than this. You're gonna You're not what people expect of you. What you expect of yourself is what matters, and you just can't let people's thoughts and feelings about yourself be how you view yourself. And I feel like with everything that's going on now, I just felt like it was the right time to talk about this and tell anyone who's had anything similar to my experiences to know that you have a voice and your voice matters. And don't let anyone who's in a particular situation who has power make you feel less of a person. Because at the end of the day, they hurt the way you hurt, they bleed the way you bleed, and when we all die, the only person who determines where you go is a higher power, which is God. And don't let anyone feel like they can have that control over you, because they're not entitled to that control. You are in control of yourself, and don't let society make it seem like that's not the case. You are in control of yourself. And with the rioting that's going on, I've seen a few people talk about how they don't think it's the right thing to do, or they don't understand it. And I feel like what doesn't need to be explained, you don't have to explain it. We all experience hurt, anger, frustration, confusion in different ways. It's not something that you're gonna understand, but just know that the protesting and the rioting may have started today based off police brutality, but it goes back much further than just police brutality. And that's what we need to remember. And also, just because the action of others is not what you think may be the best thing, it may be the best thing for this situation that we're in right now. Because you have to realize that we have done the peaceful protesting and still not have been heard. And I don't condone violence, but if destroying a few targets or Foot Lockers is going to make our voice be heard and lead to change, then let be it. Because you also have to realize when white men and women or boys and girls do the same action that we're doing now, they're not the ones that's getting viewed as the thugs or the criminals or need to be behind bars. People accept their behavior and just respond to it as, oh, well, they're just kids being kids. No. We are all human, and if you want to respond to black people as thugs and gangsters, you need to refer to white people and what they do the same way. And it's just unacceptable. It's really unacceptable, and it has to stop. I hope that this video is able to help anyone out there that doesn't know what to say or how to say it. I feel like to be as organic as possible and just say how you feel, be unapologetic about it, because I'm sorry. How I felt in this video is how I had to live through these experiences for myself, and I am not going to sugarcoat it to make anybody else feel that they are right with what was done or was not done. And honestly, I feel like everyone who has experienced anything similar or any racism or wrongfully being profiled should speak out about it. This is definitely the time your voice needs to be heard. And I want to share your story, just like I've shared mine. And with this video, I've also thought about making it 3 parts. I wanted to do pretty much like a question and answer with my husband. I have a series of questions that I have come up with that I'm going to ask not only my husband but also my 2 brothers and see how they respond. And I think this should be great. And thank you so much, guys, for watching, and see you in my next video. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay blessed, and I stand with you.